All right, so looks like we are live now with the Sonic Visions episode 9, and we are joined by many returning guests, Flux One, Shrug, Nick, and a new guest, LMAO-C. I don't know if I'm saying your name right. Um,
Uh,
so
just just run through it. Just
uh,
say Lamau C.
okay. So yeah, welcome everyone to this new episode. I'm very happy to have you guys. We have a kind of a list of topics, and let's just go through them. I want to just start off with our typical topic. I'm gonna just step away for a moment after I introduce this, and I'm sure Flux and Evie and the rest of all of you guys can take over. But let's start out with each of you and what you are excited about, new gear or existing gear, things you're listening to, things you're enjoying, or things you're looking forward to. Uh, Whoever wants to start.
Nick, go ahead.
Well, okay, yeah, because I ran direct. Are we just jumping into it, right? No intros.
Yeah, just go right into it.
Okay.
Yeah, just
I
go right in.
I just reran direct on my RMC Emotiva RMC1 processor, and I have I don't know 64 drivers in the room, which includes four 15-inch sub drivers, Atmos, four overheads, and seven surrounds. So I ran direct, and I don't know if everybody here or anybody here is familiar with it. It's intricate and takes some time. You take readings on all your speakers, on multiple spots, depending on what type of setup you want to do. I did a 13-point reading, which, needless to say, took quite a few hours. But the final result it just blew me away. When there was supposed to be no sub or no bass, it was like, I wonder if the bass was working. And then you would think there was supposed to be some bass, and it was like, I sense it, but and then when the bass hits, is Jesus, Mary and Joseph, did it hit? And yeah, it's set up right, and it sounds incredible. Best I've ever heard it run, and I've been using different versions of Direct for I don't know 4 or 5 years now. So it's this is the most impressed I've been by setting it up. Right now, the subs are a little hot, and they're still playing with the software. But with subs, you can always just turn the gain down a little bit, and it's perfect. So I don't mind a little hot sub. So I'm really thrilled to hear theater sound the way it should sound. So that's my new and enthusiastic information for this week. I don't know if
Awesome.
who else.
I guess I can go next, only because I guess there's actual transactional news for me to share. I decided this week that for some gifts for the upcoming holiday season, I'm typically a little bit more proactive when it comes to that. My This goes back a little bit of ways, but some I guess existing gear that's already out there, but that is something that I want to acquire now and already have at this point is an LCDR. I'm deciding to get one primarily because my significant other, who is the same one that was enjoying the Falcon Pro as of, what I shared last week on that recording, the demo that I was able to provide for them was even more positive for their tastes and their, I guess, preferences compared to what I knew their previous favorite to be, which was the Focal Utopia. And while technically I'm not going to say I'm on the lookout for a Utopia at this point because it's a bit redundant at this point for me, but at least for my significant other, I'm in the process of waiting on a tracking label to get one. And then additionally, I completed my order for an LCD5. So it is in the books. I don't know when it's going to show up right now because it's still something that is in the process of pre-order. It's still in the pre-order stage, but
Wow.
outside of that, uh, as outside of me continuing to be an Odyssey fanboy, like so many of my friends know me as, um, outside of that, I've just been enjoying appreciating the gear that I will eventually sell. So I feel like that pretty much wraps up what I have available. Are there any other pieces of existing gear that you're appreciating, or is there anything that you are currently searching for, lusting after, anything like that?
I'd like to add Flux. I'd just like for my soul ears, anticipation is
Anticipation is keeping me late.
that's it, man. Oh, that's awesome. I'm thrilled for you.
Hmm.
Can't wait for you to get it, and I'm just like you, and for some great reviews from you. That is awesome.
Yeah, I'm hoping to follow up my I guess being able to extend beyond the 10 minutes or so that I was able to get at Can Jam. And then also, hopefully, in true form of what I'm known to be able to do is be able to pass my particular unit around to some colleagues and see what they think as well. That's honestly that is probably what I'm looking forward to the most is that community um, experience of okay, I have this piece of gear. Now let's instead of making it just this private thing, let's share the love and maybe get some additional reviews out of it as well.
Now
Let let
these,
let's revel in it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great.
yeah. Now these friends of yours, this community that you want to share with, are they local? Are they nearby to you? Like, how do you handle the physical sharing?
Oh, so most of it would be through either text message, being them local, or if they are someone that I've dealt with on Discord before and they are someone who's trusted, then I will, go ahead and lay out the terms for said agreement and just set up a loaner tour in that way and just kind of say, okay, like everybody signs up, try and get it geographically mapped out so that for shipping purposes, there's as few delays as possible. So trying to avoid, say, like areas around Florida, try and avoid Florida during hurricane season, or if it's a snowstorm is headed for a particular area in the northwest, then maybe try and divert it until after that's happened. And generally speaking, it'd be like about a week to 2 weeks to allow for life to happen in between then, so as to make sure that everybody still gets a fair shot, even if it's only for a weekend. They still have the opportunity to plan that out ahead of time.
Yeah,
That
that's very generous. Very
yeah,
cool. Sorry,
And
Nick. You were,
generally speaking, it's easier with headphones as opposed to shipping an amp,
or a
especially
speaker.
like a tube amp or speakers. Yeah.
Yeah,
yeah.
Sennheiser is actually looking to possibly start doing some more headphone tours because we just realized how hard it is to actually get two headphones. And we want to try to do some selective. At first, we're going to start with selecting people to do um, reviews and give them like a week or 2 weeks, like you said, to let life happen. But it is hard to, sometimes pick a large sample group that you think will give a good rounded voice of opinions. Like, you don't want everything all positive and fake. You don't want it to be all negative and angry. You want a nice round mix. But no, it's tricky to do the logistics of shipping around. I was impressed. I thought you were just sharing with local friends, like you said, with text message, but the fact that you're going to be encouraging shipping it around, that's awesome. You're doing a real favor for Odyssey.
Yeah. In particular, just the people that come to mind, I'll leave it private, but
Fair enough.
for names, but for the people that I have in mind, everybody in that group, I value their opinions. I value the fact that they're taking time to compare with in situations past with their gear layout and what they have on offer, trying to make sure
is
that
work.
it's not every single person is running a one of like 3 amps. I'm
The
trying
same
to
setup.
make sure that's not the case. I want to make sure that if I pick someone from the previous time, that maybe someone similar who is of equal competency can then also get a shot this time when maybe they missed out last time, et cetera, et cetera. Just making sure that it's as fair as possible. Though, given that it's the LCD5, I might not see it around for multiple months, but I'm okay with that.
You're gonna miss
because,
it.
Yeah, but at the same time, I did that for my LCD4. It was gone for something like 9 months from the time that I shipped it out until the time that I got it back, and unfortunately, at the time that I got it back, a bit of a tangent here, but at the time that I got it back, I had to repair the wood rings because there was damage that was incurred over the course of shipping. But luckily, that was done before Odyssey has kind of made a decision to start moving away from wood and start moving towards wood alternatives like the acetate that's in the LCD5. So anyway,
And it's just
instead
a
of
courtesy
me
not to take them
continuing to
apart and stuff.
indulge, is there anybody else
I'd
present
like,
at the moment?
I'd like to speak on that topic real quick before we
Yeah,
go away. I've
yeah.
been the I've been a benefactor of having a pair of headphones come to me for a review, and it was incredibly generous. They happened to be the 800s, HD 800s. I heard a lot about them, and we got 2 reviews, actually a combined review, because my wife, uh, who was looking at the time as well, so we both took our turn with the same set of headphones on 2 different amps, and we both wrote down what we each thought about it, and then combined it into a single review. And ultimately, it wasn't the headphone for me, but it did some great things, and it. My wife fell in love with it more than I did. I enjoyed it, but just the aspect that it was just pay shipping and insurance and take care of it, and the promise of a review. And I haven't always been a big headphone person, so I actually did the research of going and looking up terms used in reviewing headphones because I wasn't familiar with all of the jargon. So if you're
Sure.
going to review, you sure better not say it's dark and you actually mean it's light. So right, so you better
I've seen
know.
it happen.
Well, exactly, and that's why being older, I said, let me educate myself before they get to me, so I know what to call it when I hear it. And
Hmm.
I did that, and it was posted here. It was posted on HeadPie, I think, and one other that I had been visiting, but they became absurdly rude and vicious to almost everyone that visited. And
Well,
we're
I'll
not.
tell you what, though, it's definitely like a very challenging thing to put yourself out there to like go ahead and say, these are my opinions. So, like, no matter what your review was, thank you for putting your thoughts out there.
And my
Yeah.
wife would have had them right until she heard how much they were. Wife, my wife won't buy herself a pair of socks.
Oh,
Okay, but she was walking by my room one day, and I was playing an LP on a Macintosh tube amp, preamp, and she walked by. She walked by again. She came in, sat down. She says, "I don't know what it is, but we're buying it." I'm like, baby, you don't understand. She goes, "No, I really." I said, "Well, honey," she goes, "We're buying it," and she bought it. And I was like, "Well, you go, girl." When she
Yeah.
likes it. Yeah. So to her it was more of she loved this. She really loved the sound of the headphone, and she gave it really good reviews, but she just couldn't warrant the amount of money because of the lack of time she had to enjoy them. But that was the only downside she had about the headphones. But yeah,
Yeah.
and it is. I caught some grief from some people about some of my ideas, and others agreed with me. So it's like anything. I'm
Sure.
fixed. If you know me at all, I'm not going to shovel any BS anybody's way. If I love you, I'm going to call you brother and I love you. If I don't care for you, I'm just going to ignore you and stay out of your way and not bother.
Now, can you help me
Gotcha.
out? Is this Nick
Me,
or Lameo?
not going to talk behind somebody's back. That's all for children.
Yeah.
But I'm just, life's too short to be fake. So
Also,
it was it was an incredible thing to have someone's trust to let me review them and do that. So kudos to you.
yeah. So I noticed Zach joined. Zach just joined our podcast. Are you there, Zach? How are you?
Yeah, mate, I am here. I'm just driving home, so I probably won't say much until I get to my computer because it's just probably a lot, pretty noisy.
Oh, good. Nobody anyway.
Yeah, gotcha. Roger
You can
that.
always
All
sing
right.
Mr. Roboto.
Yeah.
All right.
Arigato.
So I think something that might be a good detour at this point, considering what we've talked about so far, would be to actually move down a couple prompts for the question regarding what makes a good review. Since we just talked about kind of loaning things or being on loaner tours and having other people give their thoughts. So let's start with maybe someone who's willing to contribute.
Oh, I have
What
so
do
much
you
to say.
feel? Yeah, what do you feel makes for a good review?
Well, this is Ev Shrug here, if that's okay if I jump in.
Yeah,
Um,
sure. Do you want to give a short introduction for
sure.
yourself?
Yeah, I managed to join in on one of the other podcasts here, and it was really good fun.
Okay.
But yeah, I'm Everett, and I go by Ev Shrug on HeadFi and everywhere on Discord and all that. YouTube. I used to do headphone reviews of my own, and one day I got a call from Axel Grell, and he says, "Hey, I really like the way you write." I'm like, "Oh, gee, thanks." He's like, "Yeah, would you like to write for us, and we'll pay you?" Oh, yeah. He's like, "I'm the chief product engineer of Sennheiser." Oh, okay. So I went from being a reviewer to someone who often picks people to do reviews. I
Okay.
don't get to do it all the time. But yeah, I have some personal guidelines, and I think I want to do a whole YouTube episode about it. But I think that uh, a lot of people have a bit of a misconception about what a manufacturer would look for in a reviewer. A lot of people think, we want all positive statements and we want all glowing, high hype kind of conversations. Those can be fun for a little while, and the goodwill from it lasts about as long as a week or a month, but it's not a very long-term solution. What I value the most in a reviewer is kind of a journalistic take. They're not editorializing, that they have an opinion, but they kind of leave it for last. So when you go through a headphone, you go and you give examples of songs you listen to or different traits that you pick up and provide examples about in your review. Um, Try to say, this is okay. I'm hearing a dip in the mids. That means something to some people, but if you say, you know, I'm listening to Janis Joplin and she sounds like a backing vocalist instead of a front and center, um, I don't like that. Or if you hear something else that says, the bass has a really good slam and it feels like waves of water washing over me. That's a bit of word salad. But if you can say, like, this part of this song has a really strong bass presence that really, like, just seems to fill up my attention, uh, that's not exactly objective, but it is a great subjective experience saying, like, look, this is something that is a very strong highlight. So people who can speak, maybe not necessarily the world's greatest vocabulary. If they do have great vocabulary, excellent. A lot of times we don't agree what vocabulary means, but if you can speak to describing the experience and saying where the positives and negatives are, then the people who read your review and they say, oh, I like those positives, I don't like those negatives. On balance, this is the headphone for me. On balance, this is not a headphone that I want to buy because I think I'll end up going through a return. Nobody wants to go through a return. The manufacturer wants you to enjoy what you're hearing. So we want reviews that are fair, balanced, and say, here's the kind of person that is going to enjoy this. And here's the kind of person that, maybe it's not going to enjoy it, because there is a huge gulf, variety of listeners. There will be listeners who will love, we were talking earlier about what stuff is new. I just yesterday got an HD8XX in my room, and I don't think that everyone's going to love it, but I think that there's going to be the type of people who will love it. And if you can identify who will like it and who won't like it beyond just your own opinion, maybe that's the hardest thing to do. If you can talk about who will and who won't, or what taste will appeal to this in a different way of speaking, that's extremely valuable for everybody, every community member, every reviewer, every interested new person who doesn't know much about it. I think that makes a really good review. But I'd love to hear what everyone else thinks too.
So I guess I'll go ahead and follow up with that and say that me personally, for what I consider to be a good quality review, tends to toe the line between a personal experience and then also taking yourself out of your own biases and knowing enough about potentially other people in your life or in your circles that would also like it as well. So what comes to mind in particular are not to be a broken record that only talks about Can Jam, but with Can Jam,
Can Jam's so
there
much
are
fun, though.
there are a lot of different flavors that are available at Can Jam, sometimes from companies that you've either never heard of before or you have, zero preconceived biases on. So it's a unadulterated, unfiltered experience in that way. To go back to what makes a good review, I can not necessarily provide a good review, but what I can do is give you my impressions, give you what I think of something, and then after that, after I decide, okay, well, maybe this is not for me, maybe this is something that I'm not totally in love with, or maybe this is something that for me personally, I might not own. But what I can do is say, okay, let me think of other people who I've interacted with who would enjoy this. And then I start thinking about what do they like? And you start highlighting those things. And maybe there are some comfort issues with a particular headphone of comparison, if it's a headphone or if it's a piece of gear, against something that that is analogous to it, where those points of comparison then can start to open your audience for for potential attention, where if I am comparing X headphone to A headphone, or I guess Y headphone, X and Y, then Y headphone, if I name a particular thing that somebody else maybe already has or already has experience with, then I believe that you can gain or lose a potential following there. And I think the key is making sure that you are detailed enough in your review to make sure that you highlight things that not only you yourself, but others prioritize. So, like for myself, as an example, I don't like, I don't particularly like very brightly tuned headphones. I would say bright where treble above 3 kilohertz it goes beyond diffuse field. So just as that for an example. So then if something is brighter than that, I'm probably not going to like that. And I will go ahead and say that. But then when you're talking about a good quality review, you can say, okay, well, maybe that is just one aspect of things that is not to my particular taste, but what about the comfort? What about the sound stage? What about how it performs on various price point source gear, amps, DACs? Is it able to resolve differences between those pieces of gear, or does it stay, pretty similar? And when you go that far in depth across so many different attributes, potential attributes, and you list out, how what you feel is noteworthy for comparison, because you can't spend gigabytes of text comparing against 1,000 headphones in a review. I don't think very many people would sit through all of that. But if you can make a few key comparisons that are noteworthy, that will then end up garnering a popular points of comparison, then I think you'll end up with a solid, informative review that will then help people make a decision. They might then decide to go out to an event, whether it be official or more grassroots organized, or they could go to, say, their local audio shop dealer, their brick and mortar store, and get ears on it in that way, and maybe help to aid in the discussion of what maybe your individual review, whether it be good quality, bad quality, then add to that discussion to then open the floor and maybe even revise and improve your own, so that the next time around maybe you can progress in that way.
One of the, I hadn't heard yet, but one of the most important things you have to ask yourself before you start a review is, who's my audience?
Right.
Without that, I mean, you might as well be blowing smoke up in the air, because you're not going to connect with everybody with the same review written the same way, because you have people that have heard 100 different headphones, clue, but they want high value. They have the dollars. They just don't know what they're looking for, and they're not going to listen to 18 or 20 different pairs of headphones. You got to remember, we're one percenters here. So what we would write to speak to each other in our jargon is not going to touch with a mass marketing Sennheiser. They have multiple different groups of people they want to sell to. So you always have to start with, who am I speaking to? And to me, even before you start talking about the headphone, here's the packaging. Looks like it was slapped together. Boy, no detail here at all. The materials feel cheap. or they feel very luxurious. I mean, before you actually put them on your head, the review's already started. If we don't go there,
You could even go so far back as to say when the transaction
yes,
starts, even if it's social, even if it's exclusively social, and it's company says we are going to send you a review unit, and no matter what happens after that, as I've seen in the community over my years, in that social contract, whatever happens after that, that is, yeah, as you mentioned, Nick, that
that,
is when the review starts.
right,
Yeah.
exactly. Oh,
I
they
had a
promised
friend who
me.
explained it really well. He said that the initial transaction, the purchase, and the unboxing experience is all the handshake between the listener and the company. I like that a lot.
Right. Well, the
Would
package
agree.
says here's what to expect. And if it's a cheap cardboard box that looks like it came from the five and dime shop, your
Hmm.
expectations are set low. So no matter how much it exceeds them, you've already started at a low plateau. Versus you open up an Apple product, even if you don't or can't stand the product, you look at the packaging and they put thought into it. They put effort into it. They thought about the end user, and you know that box is getting thrown away. But that's not the point. The point was they set the expectation that this is a high quality product. Your dollar was spent well before
Mm-hmm.
you actually touched the product.
Did you
That's
know it is? Did you know that Apple actually has engineers that calculated the kind of vacuum and the pressure exerted by the box to make sure that that lid comes off slowly and builds up your anticipation?
yeah, yeah. I promise you, they did.
No, I know they did. I used to work for Apple.
Well, there you go.
That's
Yeah.
funny.
So yeah,
Do we have any additional thoughts from our contributing crew on our current subject?
the one last thing that I can think of, like it was mentioned, a return. Let's say you have to go through a return. Did they make it difficult? Did they make it hard? Were they an easy company to deal with, or did they think you were just some schmo? One thing I always remember: I got married 33 years ago. I will never forget my honeymoon for one thing. And yes, I still have the same wife, very much in love. But the one thing I remember from the honeymoon, we were in the Bahamas, and no matter what the problem was, is no problem, man. It's no problem. We're supposed to go out on a wine and cheese a meal out on the ocean, but it's lightning and thunder. We paid for a cab to get there. Our evening was shot. No problem. We take care of the cab. We take care of you. Give you your money back. It's no problem. You come back to see us. That experience, even if you didn't like the product, you're willing to try them again because everything was no problem. So I think when you can find customer service that understands that, you're a step up on some of the others.
Okay.
That's all.
All right.
Yeah,
So,
I do think Bahamas have especially good host attitudes. They're great.
all right. So, let's go ahead and move on to
Mhm.
our next topic, which might be a little short on my end. So I probably won't contribute as much here. But so how do you value if audio gear is worth its asking price? Now, there's a particular highlight with the higher end, and since I am of the mindset that not everything has to be considered high end, as we're already spending more than the average consumer on a particular on this particular hobby. I want to kind of leave that open for what your contribution ends up being. So if you are, more budget minded, I'm not saying you have to start with that, but just as you go along, if it's, the high end of what your budget entails, it's fine. Because again, each individual has their own means that they end up kind of wandering in. So again, how do you value if audio gear is worth its asking price?
I can think about that
go
one.
with that.
Quiet, guys.
Yeah. Okay. So who would like to go first?
If you don't mind, I'd like to go.
Sure, Co. Also, welcome on. Sorry we missed you for a few minutes.
No worries. So when it comes to pricing, it really depends. Let's see. It depends on a few things. So I'll start with IEMs because that's sort of an interesting point. With IEMs, if you determine something is worth the money, you generally have to stick with the sort of the chi-fi sort of space, and you get a lot of value there. But if you place a premium on something which is American, and let's say you get Jerry Harvey IEMs, then you're going to be paying a premium for that, and that's the value is obviously the criteria for that is in the eye of the beholder. So if you don't care where your product comes from, or if you're impartial to it, then you get more, I suppose, specs or more objective better driver performance, or you get the tonality that you want, or you get the technologies that you desire. So it really depends. But if you're just looking at, does it have this particular feature set, then whatever the price is set, then the price is set. I think most people who are listening are generally looking for an IEM that can reproduce technicalities at a certain level, and they aren't too fussed as to the topology. They're not too fussed as to what's in the IEM, whether it's a BA or a dynamic driver, or if it's a tribrid. If it has good tonality and it has good technicality, then they go. Sorry?
You don't care about how you get there, just the
exactly
that you got there.
Yeah, exactly. And if it works, it works. But as you go into the higher end, then it sort of becomes a question of what new innovation are you offering. So to give an example would be bone conduction. So with bone conduction, you sort of shoehorn into very, very few categories. And I think the only real high end I've seen so far is unique melody. So if you're really set on that particular technology, then you don't really have a choice. If you want something, if you want a particular, if you want something which is, let's see, if you want something which has really good, let's say, treble extension, or whatever the case may be, then you're going to want to get something like an Elysian X. But when you have these sort of when you place a lot of when you're this picky with these certain things and your desire is that high, you don't mind what the price is. That doesn't really come into account. So maybe I'm not explaining it well, but the way I see it is you will pay whatever price that you'll have to pay because really the market is dictated by those who provide the product. And if you're really, particular as to, I want better bass response, I want better treble extension, I want this, or I want a dynamic driver, I want this, then you don't have much choice unless you go for a really small boutique manufacturer, or you go for someone who does a lot of tuning. So, for example, or you do like a small operation like what Juan does, where he can provide you a product of supreme value, but you won't get the full corporate outfit, which I guess has its own pros and cons. So when it comes to whether something has value or not, there's also resellability. Some people want to buy something knowing that they can liquidate it down the line pretty easily. If you get a custom IM, or if you get a very boutique headphone, let's say I buy a headphone from Juan that has my own specific tuning, and no one else likes my tuning, then I can't sell it. So that sort of comes into play as well. And you can sort of get in and out of HeadFi without losing too much money if you don't mind buying and selling. But if you're going to just get something for yourself, that means you're sinking, money into it. You're not going to get it back. And that will obviously have a trade-off. If you want to do the whole buy-sell thing, then you're trading off sound quality with economic value. And everybody in the hobby has that sort of trade-off. Because not everybody in the hobby is willing to eat, ramen for 5 months in order to get a mess 2 or whatever the case may be. So yeah, it really honestly it just comes down to how inconvenient it is for you to get it. And if it's too inconvenient for you to make the financial stretch, or if it's literally impossible, because a Susvar is what, $3,800, that's still ridiculous. If you just can't do it, then you can't do it. But what a lot of people end up doing, they end up getting a headphone that performs very well, which then can scale up with the equipment that you throw at it. So a good approach I've seen a lot of people do is get a headphone like a 650, and then they'll just get better equipment down the line. And that equipment, like good amplifier, will hold value. You can always sell it. You can always get something else, or you can build your own. And a lot of people end up building a nice Ella kit, they pair it with the 650, and if you like that tonality, then you got yourself a killer, great sweet spot, and you're pretty much done there. So it really comes down to what you want. Do you want to sink everything in, or do you want to buy the edge of technology? And some people do that. Buy like a PC chip. They'll buy something. They'll try the next hour.
I apologize at the moment. Ko's turning into a bit of a robot.
Yeah, I can
Maybe
hear
give
that
him-
he's breaking up.
Yeah, maybe give him a little bit of time to.
Sorry.
It was really good thoughts, though, Ko. I really
No,
appreciate all those
absolutely.
points.
So just to follow up with that, since I want to kind of piggyback and then also give my own particular response, I do feel that a lot of the evaluation for those who I've interacted with, either in the Discord community or just in particular pedestrian passings, the value ends up being, if it's at the lower end, and if it's something that is, let's say, an in-ear monitor or let's say a closed back headphone, either of those two, since typically a consumer or a consumer base that I am familiar with, at least personally, they will tend to gravitate towards either an earbud or an in-ear of some sort, or a closed back headphone because they live in a little bit more noisy environment. So typically their value is determined based on the price upgrade, and does that price increase also carry with it an increase in sound quality? Is it closer adhering to what they want to hear? And also, is it something that they are content with the build, the accessories, and so on? As for me, when I try to, put a value on something, I have to admit, I'm not an expert in electrical circuits. I'm not a material science expert when it comes to audio components, but I feel like for me in particular, the value comes from being able to get a comparison down from what I know to what is the new stimuli. If it is a particular product, I'm gonna call it, product A. If I feel something is worth its asking price, then product A has to show competence compared to what everything else that I am comparing it to shows as well. So in my or I guess, piggybacking off of Ko's example of the Sennheisers that some folks online find extremely valuable. In particular, I, evaluate that and I say, I like the comfort. I like how light it is. I like the accessories that comes with it. The cable is nice. And the whole experience of it, kind of like what we were talking about with the good review, like the whole ownership experience of it is good. But then I start to look at other things that make it not so valuable, where I'm having to replace the pads more frequently than I would other headphones. So, again, just a point of comparison with a review end. But at the lower end, for me, since at the moment I'm kind of at the higher end, I feel there are some checkpoints that are more centered around, what kind of build quality are you getting? Are you getting something that is mostly in pursuit of trying to give you what a manufacturer considers the highest Fi experience? Are you getting something that is supposed to be built like a tank and still produces sound? Are you getting something that is somewhere in between? Also, how does it compare against the other things that maybe you feel are like what your home base is?
I think this
At the
question flux as well, though, is like looking at stuff like HE1 for Sennheiser. Like, how do you see value in something in HE1 versus HD 650? Like, the question was originally designed around like tube amplifiers and how one amplifier can cost 10,000, one can cost 1,000.
Okay.
And then how do you differentiate? Is the $10,000 one worth it? Is
Well,
the $50,000 HE1 worth it?
Well,
so I was
that's a bit
just
of an
about to
odd.
follow up with that. In when it comes to the higher end, and like I can take a particular example where I say that at one point the highest price tube amp that I had was brand new. It was about $2,000, and then something that I had heard at a local meet was something that was exorbitantly more, where it then required me to rethink the rest of my system, the other components that were in it, to see like was it worth trading all of those things, or was it worth jumping for that more expensive thing in comparison to what the original thing provides me. And in that, I would say that my personal evaluation starts with, obviously it's what does the sound provide? What does the new stimuli provide that is so much better than what I have known before? If it ends up being something that is something where I am able to get that A/B comparison, where I have, let's say, I have a solid state amp that is a little bit more budget minded, and then I hear something that is, multiple times more expensive. What I will start to compare is not just the exterior build quality, but the interior build quality. Is it going to be something that is a worthy investment? Is it going to be something that then not only supersedes what I have had before, but makes me appreciate the new thing because it is so technically superior to whatever data point I was used to before? So in I cannot do the interior mental teardown of this product A is significantly better put together, either because it's I'll say like with a DAC with a USB that's galvanically isolated compared to maybe something that's just, panel mounted and attached haphazardly as a, garage project from someone who's just starting out. I personally resonate with comparing the two side by side, seeing what the one offers over the other. And if it does feel worth that price jump, generally speaking, I will go for the price jump. But it's because I then evaluate that sound difference, whether no matter what the intangible qualities might be, if that evaluation passes and I say that it is worth it, then I will, just go ahead and say, all right, that's mine. I'll list, the cheaper thing and enjoy what this higher price thing provides me, because I do see the value in it. How, like, if you're asking me specifically, what do I value in that gear, then it becomes an open-ended question for, what is the particular type of gear? Is it a headphone? Is it an amp? Is it a preamp? Is it a DAC? Is it a cable? Is it a player? Is it a streaming service? And then, it's a waterfall of then, well, then after that, then it's another set of questions and another set of questions that I have to personally answer. And that's what I don't want to take up too much more time going over at the moment. Because I would like other people, not to critique, just more me explain where I'm coming from with my personal value on the audio gear.
Sure. And I really like the way that Ko put it. Oh, and we may hear my cat for a second. But I really liked how Ko put it, is basically like most of these things are within reach, that if you want it, eventually you can save up to get it. When I got my first HD 800, I was working at a computer repair place, and it was like, I think I had to save up for like 7 months to have enough like funds outside of like my bills to afford my headphone. But to
Okay.
me, it felt like it was worth it to go ahead and get that jump, because I had identified it as the holy grail of my preference at the time, and it was worth saving for. But I do believe that most people go through a stage of I just want to hear music, and it's not really going to change that much. And then maybe eventually they evolve into thinking, oh well, what's the middle ground? What's the most value I can get for the least amount of money? And then later on they say, well, all this is within means. What's exciting and what's new? What's the gimmick that will get me? Or what is just what is, like, as I said before, the pinnacle of your ideal? So I think it's a little bit less about the headphone that determines the, well, I mean, so sure, the headphone determines value, but I think a lot of or the cost. The headphone determines the cost, but I think of whether it gets bought or not is based on the person's value and kind of where they are in the journey. Um, and not all the journeys end up at what's the best I can get, or not all of them go for holy grail signature, or
They,
not everyone tries to experiment around with different flavors. Go ahead, you were gonna say.
yeah, and also that everybody ends up potentially having a different path as well. They might
Mm-hmm.
first start out with something where they stretch maybe a bit too far for their means, and then they say, "Oh shit, now I'm in debt," or
Right.
now I am really sweating on the next few things that I need to buy, whether it be for my life or for whatever.
Yeah.
They have a course correction. They say, okay, well, let's reevaluate for a moment. Let's get
Mm-hmm.
something that is more price performance oriented. And I feel that even in that case where you're categorizing your own means, you end up balancing out that desire for wanting to stretch and go further, or wanting to stay, like I said, more budget oriented, or
Right.
just at something that is, as you mentioned, where you can get the best performance out of the lowest price that you're comfortable spending.
Yeah.
Because someone, even in this particular server, you can have somebody that says, what's comfortable for me is having a balance of $2,000 components, and they're, all sitting around about that range. You can also have somebody who, maybe they stumbled across a high end headphone that was found at a deal price, but
Mm.
in all reality, what they have access to are more budget minded components. That's fine too.
Yeah.
But everybody is as I was trying to point out before, they're on that different stages of their own journey. They don't even have to go in the same order, and each time they go through that era, there is a different evaluation of, is something worth $300 versus $500? Is there something that's worth 1,000 versus 10,000? Is there something that's worth 20,000 versus 50,000?
Right. And if I could give a piece of advice to any listener, one thing I've seen happen a few times, and it always kind of makes me a little bummed out, is that someone will, like you said, overstretch a little bit, and maybe not in the sense that they're financially in trouble, but it's commonly said the headphone is the biggest differentiator in sound quality if you're upgrading a system. However, I've seen people that get something like a 300 or 600 ohm headphone with a little bit more amping requirements, and they spend all their money on the headphone, and then they're trying to run it off of entry level gear, that they come to the conclusion, oh, this is not really all that different from, $100 headphone or a $30 headphone. I didn't experience that much. The clouds didn't part for me because the difference wasn't that great. And my piece of advice would be that sometimes it's better to look at the whole system um, before just making a jump that's all too much focused in just one area. That sometimes, uh, you know, getting $1,000 headphone, just arbitrarily, I'm not speaking about any particular headphone, but $1,000 headphone and the $100 amp, and using the DAC built into your iPhone dongle
Basically,
might
basically,
limit your experience.
Yeah, go
what,
ahead, Nick.
basically, what you're saying at this particular moment is the lack of education is very expensive.
Mm-hmm.
I mean that's what you're speaking to there. If you have gone through that scenario, well, shame on you because you jumped and you didn't look to see if there was water down below. I mean that's what I see. And getting back to value and cost versus what's conceived, and there's people that are on journeys. They started out high, and then they figured out life happens, and then a pair of HD 650s and some baby formulas where they're at now, and other hobbies, and there's so at what point, and it's in every form of entertainment. Home video, home theater, headphones. Uh, it's compromise. Even in the manufacture of headphones, it's all compromise. So it's what do you feel comfortable with at what price point? I mean, if you have your forever person or whatever, you're not seeking one. You're comfortable in your world, what you're doing, and you want to spend your time just enjoying music, and you can afford or eventually put into your budget the best pair of headphones that you want, have at it, man. But if other things come into your world, let's say you're into cars or guns or this or that, then you got to start prioritizing. Okay, well, I want to spend this amount of budget over here, that much of budget there, and we're back to compromise to where, okay, I don't listen to headphones a lot, but I have $2,500, $3,000 worth of headphones upstairs. I don't really listen to them enough to warrant it, but when I am forced into that box to where the house is dead and I can't sleep and I just want to enjoy the evening, wow, I'm a happy camper. So at my point in my life, I'm good because to me, I can let those dollars sit there and I don't need to use them for any other purpose. Other people, those dollars sitting there could mean something else to them, either a component or something else or part of their life history, story, what have you. So it's really what part of life's journey are you in, and then your journey in audio. It's always that way. It's always your life journeys first, and then what part of the journey and how deep do I want to go into? Let's all face it, our rabbit hole, and we love
Exactly.
the hole, right?
Yeah,
So
100% agree. That's what you're talking very eloquently to the point of why I said it's almost more about the person than it is about the headphone cost. But,
Mm-hmm.
you know, the products matter. I'm just saying,
Oh,
you're
of
right.
course
You're 100%
they
right.
do.
Like, are
And
you
then we're
able
back.
to relax, and is it okay, or is it like a stressful thing to pick a headphone? There's some people who really get anxiety about what
And that's
am I going to buy the right one?
and,
Like,
and they're missing the whole point. The headphone
yeah,
is the chapter in which you go, ah, life is good and I'm enjoying it.
right.
And not worried about what's the next best, greatest thing. Who cares if
Or
I
getting to the end
stumble
game from the
across it
beginning.
and I get it? Great. If I don't get it, boy, I'm happy as a lark in my life right now because nobody's beating down my door trying to kill me. And I got my music and everybody around me's happy. And, there's always going to be some strife in your life. That's going to happen too. But you got your old standby, your setup, and your music, and you can escape, whether it's for 5 minutes or 5 hours. You at least get to escape the world for that amount of time in your own little ecstasy.
to pay for boutique and bespoke things and paying more for the story and maybe rarity of the parts and stuff like that, and sometimes even beyond the physicality, like the chassis. You know, some people love Viva Audio, and I think a lot of what you're paying for is a Lamborghini has worked with them to finish their amplifiers. You know, you're paying for an aesthetic, you know, and for some people that's of high value. You know, that's something that really matters to them, is the way it looks when they look at it makes them happy to some degree. And that's fine if that's how they value things. So I don't know, I feel like we brushed around the edges of the topic, but I just tried to like punch a hole in the middle of it and be like, what actually does give something value differs from all of us, which I think we all addressed, but stuff like
Yeah.
R&D, legacy, you know, bill of materials, exclusivity, story, all that is really important too.
Yeah, all of that encompasses what I think is actually answers the particular value of, does a piece of gear end up being worth the asking price? Yeah, thank you, Zach.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
that was a great point, and forgive me. I thought that was the starting point. That was a given. I mean, as far as, but it
Oopsie.
should be mentioned, and none of us did. So thank you for pointing that out. And when you say, the thing being designed by Lamborghini and stuff like that, that's why, like with speakers, why would you get rosewood at a much higher price when you can just get the lacquer, the flat black, and slap some paint on it and don't worry about it? Because it's the appeal of the product itself. You're absolutely right.
Yeah, I've got the $5,000 rosewood extra finish.
I'm guilty.
Damn.
I'm
Worth
guilty of
every penny to make sure it ties in with the rest of what you're working with.
exactly.
So okay, so let's go ahead, and probably one of the hallmark topics of what I was looking forward to, in terms of hearing from the rest of our audio or our contributors today, is something that is near and dear to me, but I've already told that story about 200 times to individuals on a peer-to-peer basis, whether it be in direct messages or whatever. So, in particular, I want to introduce the art of the pursuit without regret, or what many could consider a blind buy, where maybe you can't get a whole lot of information. Maybe what you're looking at is something that is niche enough to where your particular, resources at hand, you can't necessarily get a full-bodied discussion on it because there's not enough exposure. No, there's not really enough review on it, or where you just decide, okay, you know what? I want to get this thing. I want it to be one and done, and I'm just going to go for it. So I think, in particular, I remember that Ko had a very touching story that I wanted to hear. So if you don't mind, Ko, would you be able to start us off with this topic?
Yeah, sure, of course. Yeah, so recently I saw this video by featuring a man called Kent Fritz, and if you don't know who he is a legend amongst audiophiles. He designed and built his own tower array system with ribbons that with like 80 dynamic driver units with distinct bass modules. The whole thing was ridiculous. It was insane. He modeled his listening room out of after a Japanese a concert hall he visited in Japan, and he spent the better part of a decade building it and designing it. Because after a hard life, a long life of work and of work and sacrifice, raising a family, and having a full job and all of that, you just want to spend some time with what matters a lot to you and your hobbies, which you've left discarded for a while, which was for him was audio. So he spent the better part of a decade built finding the equipment he wanted, designing the turntable he wanted, building up a vinyl collection, which is absolutely ridiculous. I would say probably in excess of $250,000. just for the vinyl. It was unbelievable. And he finished this project, I would say, just maybe 4 years ago. And then I saw this video about 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago. It was an update. It was a news featurette about, where's Ken now? And very sadly, he has succumbed to ALS and has progressed very severely, very rapidly, to the point where he has very hard difficulty communicating, and obviously his faculties are unfortunately going, and because and because because of ALS, he isn't able to enjoy a system to the degree that I'm sure he envisioned. So he is sadly looking for someone who is willing to take up his mantle and install the system in their own home and enjoy it and savor it as much as he could have before ALS very sadly took its toll on him. So I found that story very, very bitter and I'd say bittersweet, because I guess the sweet part would be that he managed to discover his muse in life and execute and accomplish his ultimate dream, which very few of us have the privilege of doing. But of course, the bitter part was that he didn't have the time after much work and much labor to enjoy the fruits of his labor, and that time is robbed from him. So that video and that sort of experience, that story really, really impacted me. And that's sort of what I sort of pitched this question to Smod, saying perhaps we would want to discuss this, the art of knowing when to just YOLO, just go for it, because who knows what will happen in life, where you may just have to sacrifice the system. You may have to just cut things short, whether it's externality or whether it's something internally driven. And because a lot of us, I think we end up delaying our gratification. We end up diverting funds to other things in life, or we feel guilty for treating ourselves to getting something good. And by the time arrives, we aren't able to enjoy it for whatever reason, whatever the case may be, whether our hearing isn't up to it or we don't have the resources for it. And we just delay it to the point where it's not feasible. So this is sort of the inspiration for that question. And hopefully, and this video sort of triggered me to start re-examining my pursuit in this journey of hi-fi. So I just wanted to open up to the floor. I know that how's your attitude toward, I guess, not just YOLOing, but just going for what you want, and how has that progressed since starting the hobby? Has that altered since you started, and has that vision sort of changed throughout your journey?
So it's the art of the YOLO and how to live without regret, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. Does anyone mind if I take a floor, or does anyone else want to speak, like Juan or anyone else? I want to make sure I don't dominate.
No, I probably will chime in because I'll
I'll look forward to it.
I will go ahead and
Go
leave
ahead.
mine for something towards the end of our discussion on this topic, and then that way we can kind of move towards closing out the episode. So by all means, Evie,
Cool.
go ahead.
Yeah. So Ev again, and so I mentioned earlier that I really saved up to buy an HD 800, and it was a long time to get it because it was about half of how much I made in a month, and I needed to pay all my bills first. So, I didn't have half of my income to put towards fun things. I just didn't, and I don't have the capability of buying an Orpheus system from Sennheiser, for example. It is for me the best headphone I've ever heard, but that's something that I can't save up for. That's not something that I have the means to do. But I would say that I've been happy all along the way of my journey. My secret to not having buyer's remorse is doing a lot of research on the front end. And I don't buy things when I first hear about them. I don't quite have the skill of the YOLO. I may have to learn from you someday, Ko. But
It'll happen eventually.
Oh man, I heard a rule. My mom instilled this thought in me as a kid that um, you want something, well, wait 2 weeks and see if you still want it after that. And that basically kills the honeymoon period. You know, is there something else that's going to catch your eye more? Is it something you really feel like you can go for? And then, you know, I try to get an idea like, well, how does this fit into what I need or want? And I also try to feel like, well, do I already have something that is fulfilling me? Am I happy with it? And a lot of times that means I go back to what I already own and I go back to enjoying it. Um, but yeah, I feel like the most um, for me, it's like it is so reassuring to me that I can look at reviews, for example, of a headphone or a camera or something, and I can say, all right, this is going to I've made a list of my wants, and it's going to fulfill them in these ways. I understand what limitations there's going to be and what may not be perfect about it, and I accept that it's not going to be perfect. And then after this time has passed and I've slept on it, and honestly, I often wait more than 2 weeks. Then it's like, okay, yeah, I'm going to commit to this, and I'm going to be happy with it, unless there's some really extreme outlaid thing. Um, and once I'm committed, I go all out for it, and I will save up for months and months. It all started for me with video games. Actually, I was a kid making like, you know, $2 allowance a week and $5 or $10 for mowing the lawn, and I wanted a Sega Genesis. And I saved up Christmas and birthday money and all my chore money, and it took me a whole year of like, you know, having to buy, you know, candy or, you know, costume things or whatever, gifts for other people. But there's definitely a intrinsic reward that's separate from the headphones, separate from the purchase, that you get from the anticipation of saving up for something and feeling so satisfied that um, you're making the right decision. And then when you get it and you hear it, that you're like, okay, I knew what the negatives and positives were, and I'm going to listen and I'm going to explore. And you really need to spend some time enjoying it without looking for upgrading it or changing it. Like, just appreciate what you've accomplished, and also appreciate what value you're getting out of it. So I tend to hold on to headphones for years. I'm not the fastest upgrader.
Yeah. Okay.
And that's my YOLO, is that I am careful about my YOLO, but then I totally go for it.
Right.
Yeah.
I do resonate with a couple of those things, but I'll, like I said, I'll hold off a little bit longer. Did anybody else want to chime in?
Sure, I guess I will.
Sure.
Great.
Okay.
I just walked to the top of this bleachers here, so I'm very high up now.
On top of the world.
Yeah, feels like it. Anyways, yeah, I'm in college, so there's a lot of these YOLO type moments.
You still there?
So
I think we may have lost
I
Juan.
think he just YOLO'd off the bleachers.
I hope the wind didn't blow him off.
There's no reception on top of the world.
Yeah,
No,
apparently.
too far away
Apparently.
from the towers.
All right. Well,
Yeah, college is hard though.
there we go.
Saving up.
Juan, you still there?
Paging one.
One not there.
He did just reconnect to the chat.
Well, I might just jump in then while we wait for.
Okay. Yeah.
Juan
Yeah.
to
Go
come
ahead.
back
Go ahead, Zach.
online. I think Ko's point was the mortality thing and seeing Fritz with ALS. It really touched me too, looking at, someone who spent their entire life working at a high-end business level and with his dream to get to this point. And I think he enjoyed getting there, and he's still enjoying his system a great deal. So I would not say it's a completely sad story, but it really resonated with me, especially in my line of work, working with a lot of the elderly and stuff who work their whole life, and then seeing some of them get cancers and stuff, and they work to get to this retirement age, and then they get there, and the things they really looked forward to enjoying, they never got to enjoy, and it just pains me to sort of see it happen. So, I wanted to always have a big speaker system, and so I created this timeline, and I tried to get there as soon as I physically could, because I wanted to have it while I had my hearing as another thing. Hearing
Right.
degrades over time. Like, we're most of us are blessed that we're, sub 40 or 50 or whatever, and we have our hearing intact. But Tile, all hail Tile, the headphone guru, like he said I can't hear above like 6,000 hertz. He's like, high end doesn't make any sense to me anymore. Like, so he put some speakers in his van and took off. So I don't know, while I have the opportunity, particularly with COVID, I think is another thing that motivated me. I had time at home for the first time in 8 years, where I was sitting in my house and I'm like, frig, I got a house and a nice partner. I never spent any time in either, well, not. But yeah, it's just been crazy, like having the time to spend at home. So that was another huge motivating factor for me. Was this was my time. If I wanted to spend months listening to music and going through albums and doing that, like COVID was a good opportunity. So I don't know. I think mortality, COVID has pushed me to YOLO a little bit, but then to try and negate the effects of, when you're dropping $10,000 on an amp or $30,000 on speakers, which happens sometimes. You try and buy secondhand. I always try to buy secondhand to for resale purposes. I know whatever I buy, my opportunity cost is not that bad, because I'm not spending such a large amount of my money that I'm leaving myself with an opportunity cost. And the other thing is, I know that I can resale most of what I buy with maybe only a 5 or 10% loss. So, and I'm okay with that. I go in there knowing that. So, and I typically try to buy stuff with a warranty as well, which also protects you if it breaks or whatever. So I don't know. I have a few little
Right.
principles that minimize and allow me to YOLO with a little less risk. But man, I've YOLO'd hard on audio a fair few times, and I think you only regret it when you really overextend and you have no way of getting out of it easily, like if you don't have a resale option, then you really are, on thin ice. But I always try to make sure whatever I buy, the resale is going to be 90 to 95% of what I paid. So that way, I get it, I hate it, terrible, sell it, I lost 5%, I learned a lesson, I wrote a good review, hopefully, about my terrible experience, and we move on. But that's
Right.
that's the real art of YOLO, is minimizing your exposure where you can, and still doing what you can, because life is short. You're not here for a really long time. So if you have the opportunity to do something, you should do it. For
Right.
those experiences, in my opinion.
I
If you guys
absolutely
agree.
agree.
Oh, that's what I was gonna say earlier when I forgot. It was the art of YOLO and Carpe Diem.
Well,
All right. All right. Where are you at now, Juan? Are you
I'm
good?
here. Hello.
Okay.
Okay. Y'all can hear me fine.
Uh-huh. We're
Okay,
good.
that's good. Okay. Yeah. Actually, going from that, I'm in college. I did not, in fact, YOLO off the bleachers. However, I did kind of YOLO into this, I guess, hobby of sorts.
Well, we're glad to hear you're back and that you're okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm okay. I'm still on the bleachers. I did not jump off. Uh, yeah, the view of San Francisco is pretty good from here. So, anyways, uh, but yeah. So I mean, no, jeez. So getting into this hobby, I typically, I value practicality over most things, especially now. No, but there was a short period, I believe, last year where I was bored and COVID, and I had some money, and I was just buying a whole shit, like just a whole crap load of hi-fi. Uh, I don't know, just thinking, oh well, might as well do it now. But I think so. I think I mean all that stuff's gone now mostly. But I think one thing is just although you do get a sense that life is a little bit short, and you see around you some people are just not able to accomplish what they want.
Yeah, and you can at least say you did it.
Yeah, like, and just sometimes it's just worth taking things slow, I'd say. Not nitpicking too many small things or chasing too many things at one time, or else it's gonna be hard to get it. Or else you'll just dig yourself into another hole and never get out of it. But I do think one thing that was a little bit the opposite of that was when I started my headphone project. It was literally a decision made over some jokes in my dorm over a couple hours. Next thing you know, we were buying 3D printers and measurement rigs, and this was December 2019, and now I'm close to launch of something that I'm really proud of. Something, and I'm just glad I'm gonna have this opportunity. I'm glad that I decided to, spur of the moment, just build a headphone. Best
YOLO,
time
you're
is
going to
now,
be
right?
creative, huh?
Yeah,
That's a really good story to
best
hear.
time is now, right?
Yeah. Right.
Uh,
Yeah, if anything you put off to tomorrow is going to take a week.
yeah. I'm really bad with doing that all the time, but I think this is one of those things where I've been able to push through it, and I still have a ton of work to do, but
Hey, at least you're
uh,
taking the steps to do it. Like it's
yeah,
definitely a worthy YOLO because you just got to make achievable baby steps and like moments where you could say, "Oh, I achieved this milestone. I still have ways to go, but you can at least revel in the fact I made it this far."
right.
Yeah, make sure that you make yourself happy along the way. That's as long as you're doing it smart and safe, you, go do something every day that scares you.
Yeah, yeah.
If I did that, I don't think I'd be here.
Well, I mean,
At least talking with everybody here. I would be probably in a very different position where audio might not be the thing that would then still hold interest in to this point.
Well, actually, that's actually something interesting you said. Doing something that scares you every day. Uh, no, I actually agree with that wholeheartedly. I don't think
yeah.
I'd.
I heard it. I have to admit, I heard it in a song. It sounded right, but it's no Baz Luhrmann who directed Mario or not Mario. What? He directed Romeo plus Juliet with Leonardo DiCaprio in it, and he released
I
this.
see.
He did a speech that was also a song for a graduating class. I forget if it was college or high school, and the whole song was like, "Look, the only piece of advice that I have that's backed up by science is sunscreen, but everything else is just something from my own meandering experience." But yeah, no, the heart of Carpe Diem and YOLO to me is that a lot of times we hold ourselves back and we're a little bit afraid to do something like enjoy ourselves, go ahead and apply for that job. A lot of times we think too much about the what could go wrong, and we build it up in our head a false amount of what could actually go wrong.
You
Yep.
know,
Nobody,
something.
What's that, Nick?
nobody that hasn't tried and failed has ever succeeded. Everyone that's ever succeeded has tried and failed, and without trying, uh, you'll never know. My business is halfway home, so if I can step in now before she
Sure.
gets home.
Yeah, sure thing. Absolutely.
Well, I'm 62 in December, so college was a long time ago. This COVID thing y'all keep talking about, I have no idea what you're talking about with no time. I mean, all this time at home. I got 3 mortgages, 2 restaurants, and no staff to run them. I mean, I have no idea what you people are talking about. There is not
You're in a
enough.
pretty good place.
Okay, it's just been Jesus, Mary. So I look. We took a lot of life savings and vacation savings and spent it on employees so they wouldn't be out of a job. And then when our wonderful government decided, well, let's give everybody free money, not only did I not have my money I gave to the employees, I didn't have employees because they went to go do nothing versus, I mean, can't say I really blame them, but thanks so much. So anyway, I'll get back to Yo. Uh, me, found my missus at a late age. I was probably the age of 1 right now, probably a little older when we finally got together. We lived our life with no debt or barely any debt. Sometimes you have to have it. I actually told a banker that I thought they were evil because they loaned money out. And they kind of looked at me cross eyed and crazy. But I told them, I said, you got to have money to run a business. So, but fortunately, matter of fact, I got the letter yesterday. Our house mortgage is done.
Oh, congratulations.
Oh,
Yeah,
congrats.
you have no idea.
No,
Awesome, man. That's a huge,
I
huge, huge
actually do
accomplishment.
know. More because of,
Yeah.
albeit because of my age, but because of my parents and how much joy that brought them.
Yeah.
That was something that was a goal, a very long-term goal that they both did not think that they were going to be able to accomplish. They thought it would just be something that was, go from one house, one mortgage to the next house, mortgage,
Yeah.
and continue to juggle an endless sea of payments. So
Yeah.
apologies for the diversion, but yeah, go ahead, Nick.
So we're so I've never taken money out of our family coffers for my I say my addiction, but we both enjoyed home theater long before it was really such a thing. I mean, we had a stereo Yamaha receiver that we connected 4 speakers to. There was no center channel, there was no surround channels. When we
Right.
listened to stereo, it was nice, and we had speakers. And look, and we lived in apartments, and we had neighbors downstairs that were old. And I walked downstairs with a plate of cookies when they moved in. I said, "Hi, this is me and the missus. Friday night, we watch movies. Brace yourself." And that was, and I mean, the building shook. It was a fourplex. And they called me down one day and asked me to look in their cupboard, and the glasses were literally walking across. So I said, "Okay, we'll turn the bass down a little bit." But it was quite amicable. That's their kids really thanked us because mom and dad came and spent Friday nights with them as a visitor. But
Hey,
that was just, I mean,
bring
it's been
audio,
a long
bringing families
road.
together.
Yeah, it's been a long road, and I've been fortunate to have a partner that we've worked together. We have some interests are similar, some aren't. When I was talking before about diverse interests, I came to realization probably when I was 40, 45, somewhere in there, that I'm not going to live long enough to learn everything I want to learn. I
Yeah.
don't know you guys have gotten there yet, or maybe some of you have, but that's frightening because I'm an inquisitive person and I want to know how everything works. So I came to that realization and I started on my quest to learn as much as I can. even though some of it's not practical and some of it I won't employ. But I've been blessed. I've seen the world. I've done things. But as far as audio, I'm at the point now, the missus and I, where she has her home theater. I have my home theater, and when we have an interest in a certain movie or show, we enjoy it together in my theater since it's system number one. And we both have our own set of headphones. So when we want to do that, we can do that. But we have other hobbies, and that's what I was getting back to, limitations of what you're willing to compromise as far as spending money on how much do you want to spend on that DAC. Have you heard that DAC? Do I like the niche manufacturers? I have a world of audio in my room. Everything from England to Germany to Poland and Canada, and I just like a little flavor from each country. Not because I tried to make that happen. It's just one day I realized I got the United Nations in my theater, in my
It's a
room.
very happy accident.
Yes, it was. My headphones are from Chicago. It's just like, yeah, awesome. So as far as the journey, I found out 7 years ago that I have a crippling form of arthritis. I couldn't get off the floor. I couldn't move. I could not button a button on my shirt. And went and got diagnosed, and I told the doc, and I'm an optimist. I said, Doc, at least it's not, rheumatoid arthritis. And she looked at me with these sad puppy dog eyes and said, I wish it was. I'm like, wait. Yeah, I'm like, wait, what? And she says, you might want to sit down. You look kind of shaky. So we found some meds. She's a wonderful doc. I am running chainsaws. I'm doing whatever I want until the day I die. My wife says, why do you keep doing what you do? I said, baby, you can't shovel dirt on me if I'm still moving. Right?
Right.
So
No,
do what you love to do. And when you think you've had enough of that, find a couple more things that you'll fall in love with to do, because life is way too short, guys. Way too short. Like I said, 62, Dad was fruitful till about 80. And I'm like, well, at least I got 20 more years I'm banking on. I'm hoping for. God doesn't promise tomorrow. I treat my significant other like tomorrow's the last day I'm going to see her, or today's the last day I'm going to see her. And you just have to be that way to someone that you love that much. Doesn't matter who they are. Don't go away mad. Just go away. No.
Right. My grandfather said whenever he got mad at his wife, he would just go for a walk. So he's had 60 years of healthy walking and a long, happy marriage.
Yeah. Our priest that we got married said, don't hate. You can tell them you don't like them very much right now and turn around and walk away. And then the steam will, natural release, and then you just get back and you'll forgive each other. And we've done that for a lot of years, and it seems to work. And I'm patiently waiting for her right now. That's outside of music and my family and the businesses. I love our businesses, but my significant other is number one before me. So
yeah, I can resonate with that a lot.
I'm cooking
and a lot of the
chicken dinner for mine
decisions.
right now.
There you go. Exactly. And it's not in what you say; it's in what you do. And sometimes I am so guilty of what I say. I mean, I'm part Greek and Italian and Irish, so I got a temper. But it's a really long fuse. It's just that last bit's flash paper. So
just
learn thyself, know thyself, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Because we've come across medication I've been put on. It's changed my personality upside down. There's this monster coming out of me. I hear it. I can't help it. Couldn't stop it. And the missus took the drugs and put them right down the toilet and flushed. And I said, thank you, and never took those again, and that never happened again. So life will hand you some weird shit. And And I saw this monster and I couldn't stop it. My mouth just kept running. Like, what is going on? In the inside of my head, and on the outside is going la 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 la. Like, oh my god! But fortunately, she saw that it wasn't me. It was, drugs, weird medication will do that to you, and you never know what drug will do it. It can be something just benign, and it'll have a chemicals mix up with your body, and your body will just reject it, and you know. Anyway, I've rambled on a long enough, but I just wanted to share.
Getting back more to the original question at hand.
Thank you for the life lessons.
But yeah,
Well, no, and plus, like I said, I'm happy with the audio systems where I'm at now. I don't think I need to spend any money to go any further because we're good with it.
Right. And you can at least recognize that you are there. You don't have to keep worrying or concerning yourself with an additional step, an additional sequence of changes.
Now, if I hit the lottery tomorrow, that might...
Yeah, that might change things a little bit. I mean, I think that would be the case for a lot of people here.
Yeah.
So, is to comment on this myself, since I know we're running a little bit long on this episode compared to others. I won't bore anybody with my full-length one, but just in my experience with what I have personally done with purchases or things where I've said, okay, it's totally blind. I cannot control the variables any further. I can think of a couple instances where it's been, I just have to end up resonating with, let it be some text on a screen that ends up being, my computer or my phone. It will be something that I've desired. So I think of a particular example that I will now expand upon. So in particular, I had the goal of wanting a bigger tube amp at some point. I had always wanted one, and before it was, well, this is what categorizes as a big tube amp or an important purchase along the line. And it only came to the point where, funnily enough, I ended up resonating with a couple people online who had an affinity for very similar things. But even still, it's not like they had experience with it. It's not like they had hands-on. It was all just talk. And what eventually made me want to spring for it was, again, knowing that at the moment, with what my situation is, it would be better to spring for it and live and learn, regardless of the outcome, than to continue to have that question looming over for months, for years, for decades. I never wanted that to be a thing with particular purchases, or in the case of this particular thing, something that had been a goal for a long time, and I just had never had the means up until that point to spring for.
So it was a YOLO, but it was a blind YOLO, huh?
It was a blind YOLO, but also it was a YOLO from the blind in the sense that I didn't know what I was getting into, but that others were at least somewhat familiar with what comes with the territory when you decide to go for that type of thing. So it wasn't necessarily that they had direct experience with what I was looking at,
right,
but that from, their spheres of influence and me being able to access that third hand, that I could then get an idea of what kind of result was going to come out of it.
And you
but even
knew
then, it's still blind.
Still blind, yeah. But you always knew that no matter what the outcome was, you were going to benefit from the experience.
Correct. And
would you say that's what got you over the edge?
That's probably what ended up incentivizing me to spring for it, as opposed to just continuing to be patient. And ultimately, I feel like that is why I'm still involved in the community, is from that springing when it was, ultimately when it was 2011 and I got my first pair of HD 800s because I decided, like I've already have a laptop for my coursework. I'll, take this money that I had earned while working in school and I'm going to put it towards a headphone. And, it move on through years, and there were similar situations of that happening, but it never really came to as much of a head as when I ended up buying this particular tube amp, where it was, something that was, on one hand, way more expensive than anything I'd ever bought before. It was also something that required then other parts of my system to be upgraded as well. And then furthermore, that I would also likely have to be very much responsible for finding someone to do repairs, for myself to then start getting into soldering and gear repair in my own sense for smaller things that would go wrong, to be able to, with comfort, take the lid off and, be comfortable with a screwdriver around some pretty expensive components. So I won't bore you guys any longer. So I guess at this point, we'll go ahead and move on to our closing section, which is classically known as Ko's Corner. Ko, are you still there?
Yeah, I'm still here, just making some dinner preparations.
Yeah, sure thing.
Yeah, so just quickly, so Shenling has announced they have a new module coming out for the M30. It's an amplifier unit, which is 3.5 watts into 32 ohms, so it's pretty beefy. They're going to be showcasing it today because I believe there is an audio show, I forget the name of it, but they'll be showing previews of the Shenling M9 as well, so that should be a lot of fun. What else? On a personal note...
Is this module on the M30?
Yeah, it's on the M30, yeah.
Okay. The book-sized DAP.
Yes. I mean, it's funny because they refer, if you look at the direct Chinese translation, they refer to it as a digital turntable.
That's
kind
awesome.
of interesting. Yeah. On a personal note, I am looking into Bluetooth dongles. And ever since using the IFI Go Blue, that concept has always been tempting. So I'm sort of looking into that as a personal, maybe next acquisition. What else is going on?
I want to follow that. Bluetooth DAC amps are real cool.
Indeed. They're so convenient. And it's just, so cool. Yeah. What else? Oh, yeah. So we're hitting fall, which means a few companies are starting to roll out products. So Cayenne sort of did a little preview of their R2R dongle. I think it's the first, to my knowledge, first R2R dongle on the market. It's called the I think it's called the RU6. So that's pretty interesting. And then what else? The N8 II is had a preview of this, of like a small slide preview has come out of it. It will be using dual Korg new tubes, and it should have I don't think they won't be using the big knobs anymore. So that should be cool. Should be a sleeker design. Hold on, anything else? Oh yeah, the Hibby RS6 has limited release in Asia, in Singapore and Malaysia so far, and the reviews are sort of mixed right now. People are still trying to make sense of it. It doesn't have. Some people aren't a huge fan of the sound. It's not like. I guess because the standard has sort of been set as luxury and precision. So people are starting to discover that just because it's R2R doesn't mean it's better. It's just a different approach, and it's all dependent on how you implement it. And then the way that Hibby's done it, it's unique because it uses an FPGA with their FIR filters, and it's a really unique R2R approach. So, but it does NOS. So I guess that's important. So that's starting to trickle out. That's starting to trickle out. The Empire Ears Evo has released. The launch wasn't as explosive as everyone thought. It was some folks. There's at least some mixed reception on the Evo. 2 have gone up for sale in the classified since on the same day of the launch. So we're sort of 2, yeah.
That's just 2.
Well,
yeah, it's just 2. Yeah, well, I mean, if you look at the thread, people were sort of going into the sound signature, and it's starting to pan out that the Evo isn't exactly a upgrade from the X. It's really it's sort of a complementary deal. That's what people are discovering, because people went in thinking it would be an absolute, it'd be like an absolute upgrade, and it really isn't. But it is. I love it personally. I think it's a fantastic IM. I just don't like the size. It's just too big.
Right.
And then Elysian X.
I was actually okay with it at Can Jam. I felt that for what I enjoy in an in-ear, it was just different. Just different enough to where it's like I can respect it, but I'm not going to be in the market for one. But I can at least respect and appreciate what they've done as what would be my first foray into an Empire Ears flagship.
Yes, exactly. And I do think the Evo is the best tuned out of the entire lot.
Okay.
Of the stuff they offer. It's just the size of the shell. And I think if they offer a custom IM, I may end up going for it.
And just to comment on those 2 people putting stuff up for sale, it's quite possible they just YOLO'd to see what it would sound like.
No, absolutely. I mean, the 2 guys, that's what they do. Like two of the guys, I know them well, and they definitely do. They just bought it because they wanted to know if they would like it or not. They weren't sort of set on it. They just wanted to know if it was worth keeping. But it wasn't for them, so fair enough. And then Elysian X. So Lee is working very hard to build up stock for Music Tech. So if anyone's interested in getting a pair of Elysian X, hit up Music Tech, because I think they'll be the first. Yeah, I think they'll be the very first North American dealer for the unit. So just keep an eye out there.
Okay.
And anything else? I think that's about. Oh, if you guys haven't heard, Luxury Precision's new generations LP7s have been delayed to summer of next year. So just keep that in mind. And that's about it.
Okay.
Yep.
I guess the only thing, since it's kind of related to the in-ears topic, is I mentioned a story last week regarding my significant other and her purchase at Can Jam of the Dunu in-ear. So I found out she's landed on the reference nozzle of the 3 that are available. She's landed on the middle one. I guess partly in due to oneheadphones.com precog vision, but also she tried all 3 of them out and landed on that one, at least with the tips that she was using that'll fit her ears. So that's all. Just a bit of an update that she's still enjoying it. She did do some experimentation on her own. It's not like I leaded her on with anything or led her on with anything to point her in a particular direction. It just so happened that she landed on something that was also applauded by a reviewer that's kind of well known in the headphones and earphones communities. So, hey, Smod, are you ready to close up shop?
Sing the theme song.
Hey, sorry guys, I wasn't able to be here during the episode. I'm definitely going to listen to it afterwards, but I'm happy that you guys went on for so long, and I'm sure it was an awesome show. And Flux, thanks so much, man.
Thanks to everybody. To
everybody, absolutely. And the brief time I was here, I could tell you were doing a fantastic job. So I appreciate you and everybody, of course. Thanks a lot for the episode. I promise to be here during episode 10, so we'll do that hopefully next week. And thanks everybody, and we'll close it out here.
All right, thank you everybody for tuning in too.
Thanks everybody. Thanks a lot.
Yeah.
All right, take care. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Dinner.